We are going to the last presentation for the day, which is the digital teacher, examining the emerging profile of teachers in post-COVID-19 era. Justice will be done to this presentation by Professor Francisca Oladipo. Professor Francisca Oladipo is a professor of computing and director, research, innovation, and international relations at Kampala International University, Uganda, and lecturer at the Islamic University of Uganda. She is also associate professor and head of Department of Computer Science at Federal University, Lokoja, Nigeria, and a member of the university's governing council, the first female to hold that position. As part of the COVID-19 response efforts of the worldwide data science researchers, she was appointed the executive coordinator of the Virus Outbreak Data Africa Network, VODAN Africa, in March 2020. She currently leads the team building fair data points on the COVID-19 pandemic for Africa and covering Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and Tunisia. Among many other things, she is a member of Nigerian Computer Societies, Computer Professional Registration Council of Nigeria, the Global Internet Governance, and so on and so forth. Outside of her daily work, she designs programs to increase the participation of females in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Permit me to introduce to us Professor Francisca Oladipo. Professor Francisca Oladipo, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Professor Adibu.
I
may
I'm not a professor, please.
Well, for me, in my world, anyone that teaches in the university, I usually refer to as a professor. So it's not just about the academic title, but about the work that you do. Okay. I'd wanted to go into the full screen mode. Let me see. I have to do that. Okay, 1 minute, please. Yeah, then I can now share full screen mode. Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished participants. I would like to, like everyone else, maintain the existing protocol, but like to recognize the presence of our Vice Chancellor, LAUTECH, and the fathers of the university, our professors who taught and raised us in our presence. And also thank the previous speakers. They have done a great work. And for me, being the last speaker for the day and having everyone online for over 2 hours or thereabouts now, I'm not going to take so much time. I've been allotted 20 minutes and I'm going to try to run through my slides. All right, so the outline, I'm going to be speaking in general terms, not much introduction really on digital technologies and digital teacher because the previous speakers had done so much on this. But I'm going to be looking at the crisis and signs of the COVID-19 and then look at the emerging profile, the kind of transformation that we expect in the COVID-19 with respect to the teachers. In the context of our presentation today, I'm going to be talking about the university teacher, the tertiary education teachers, not the primary school. So I don't want somebody to ask me, how do you want to teach arithmetic, PowerPoints to primary school kids or something? And then secondly, this is LAUTECH. LAUTECH is like one of the top that I know in terms of ODL in Nigeria. So I expect that many of the people here will actually relate with one or some of the things I'm going to be talking about. Okay, I wonder why. All right. So we all came into 2020 and it was Happy New Year. Everybody was excited. Oh, the year with 2020 and all that. And then it happened, the crisis of COVID-19 with so many consequences. There are fears, the old, the young, nobody was really so sure what's going to happen next, who is going to be alive, who's going to catch it, how do we catch it? And then there were disruptions, schools were closed, churches and other places of worship, people were asked to stay in their homes, our fashion had to change, we now have to wear face masks like people in the medical profession, and so many things. In the midst of these confusions and negative consequences, then we had the positive aspects. schools had to move online. We had to form new collaborations and new partnerships. We had the opportunity of experiencing something new and to also share knowledge. I remembered so many conferences that we actually thought could not be held online. They actually went online. Perhaps if COVID-19 had not happened, I would probably have to fly down from Uganda to Ogbomoso. I remember in 2018 or so, we had Professor Ujo as one of the speakers. He had to drive to Lagos in the midst of his very busy schedule. But now COVID-19 has made us to realize that we really don't have to be physically in one place to do so many things. And one of those things is learning, teaching and learning. And we also realize that digital education is catching up and it may likely surpass traditional education. Many schools are moving to online and taking a large percentage of their teaching and learning to online. And we also realize that educational systems in the developing countries will need to transform. Universities will have to invest heavily in digitization. There were earlier discussions about the cost, whether it is cheaper or more expensive. Cost will no longer even be a consideration because now there is a greater consideration, which is like we can't bring people together in one place any longer in order to stem the transmission of the COVID. And once we experience this, we experiment with this and we see that it's actually possible, then there is that possibility that schools will have to move a substantial part of their teaching and learning online. In the middle of all this, how prepared are the teachers for the new normal? And that is kind of the basis for my presentation today, to see the kind of expectations, the level of skills that we expect the teachers to have to be able to adapt to this transformation that is taking place. Several sciences are involved in the management of COVID-19. We have the one I would call the natural sciences and biological sciences, which encompasses medicine, laboratory sciences for testing, for vaccines, for treatments, and general medical management of disease. Then we have the communication sciences that are informing, that are combating misinformation. We have so many communications on how to wear face masks correctly, how to take them off correctly, how to apply hand sanitizers, how many seconds to wash your hands, how to keep your hands clean, how not to touch surfaces and touch soft body parts, and so on. And then we have the sciences, the social sciences that provide support, counseling, and social investment programs, and several other ones. We now have a different kind of science, the teaching science. It's not new per se, but it is fast emerging, and it's now looking so different from what we're used to. And then it's now defining the transformation of higher education now during the crisis and even after the crisis. So looking at this different kind of science, the science of teaching and learning, it will trigger a new learning revolution, and we'll have to promote continuous engagement outside of the classroom. So everybody will have to get into that mindset that we don't have to stay in the four walls of bricks or cardboard or planks or plywood to be able to activate or to actively engage in teaching and learning. And then this science also brings that consciousness that is the need to assess the present skills in both the teachers and the learners, and then look at the kind of preparations we have to make when the pandemic is over. It's not going to be over, it's something we're probably going to have to live with, but at least when we have to fully open schools, it's not going to be now the architectural buildings that will open, but actually the learning environment that will be exposed to the learners. And it also demonstrates, this science demonstrates that each university will have to evolve and adapt based on their own prevailing circumstances. So it's going to be hard to have one single size that fits all. I know the NUC will come up with regulations, the same way regulatory agencies all over the world, but each university will have to adapt based on its own circumstances. And now we know that there are several possible futures for higher education. We don't have to close schools any longer. It's just that, okay, we're not going to have the physical classrooms open, but learning can continue So in years to come, whether they're going to be earthquake or some other pandemic, learning can always continue. It will just depend on how prepared the institutions are and how they respond to this pandemic. And the science will also focus on teachers and learning, the leadership, the technology, and the collaborations that the digital teacher would have to be a part of. Tomorrow, somebody will be talking about the new learning, and of course, Professor Ibinu had spoken about what the classroom or the university or the school system generally will look like in the post-COVID-19, so I'm not going to dwell more on this, but we know now that most things will go digital. And teachers are not going to be just teachers that will stay and be dishing out knowledge. They themselves are going to become learners. We're all going into a lifelong learning. I'm going to have to learn new technologies. You are going to have to learn new models of course delivery. So we're all now becoming learners in additional. And we're going to learn this and also teach our students how to use these technologies, how to use these new learning processes. And of course, there is this formal thinking mindset that those who engage in online learning, they're probably second-class citizens. No. Traditional education is no longer going to be the first. It's not going to be possibly a choice. And there's not going to be a distinction between those who schooled online and those who attended the traditional classroom. And it's now becoming so credible that online certificates are given the same recognition, because look at a university like Harvard. Next fall, Harvard is taking about 60% or thereabouts of their courses online. So this new normal would define a new learning system, which is digital. We just have to accept it. That is what it is. And then, what will be the profile of digital teacher? The teachers that will drive learning. I think Professor Aishida or Professor Arulogun was the first to say teachers are going to become facilitators. And it's going to change. They're not just going to be dishing out, but they need to have certain skill sets. I'm going to say here that these are expectations, one, and then two, these are not going to be limited to digital skill sets. So the post-COVID-19 teacher is expected to accept that education delivery is evolving. It is expected that the post-COVID-19 teacher will be ready to adapt and communicate the evolution. So the teacher is not going to just learn new things, but has to develop the skills in the student to also learn new things and learn through a different medium, which is online. The teacher is expected to continue to develop professionally. There are so many learning opportunities provided by Coursera and several other learning platforms. So there's going to be the expectation to continue to develop professionally and the willingness to use digital learning technologies to manage, to plan, to deliver, and track the learners. The new teacher has to learn new teaching strategies based on the circumstances. So there's every possibility that I'm teaching at the Federal University Lokoja. If I have to go to LAUTECH, maybe for a visiting position or to give a short-term lecture, I need to learn based on their strategies. And then there are going to be some complex mix of skills for both technology and non-technology that the digital teacher will need to refine from time to time. That is the new reality. So we have the technology skills, the non-technical skills, and then there are some skills that are somewhere in between. These are expectations. We all are experiencing something new. When I say we all, perhaps maybe the LAUTECH team, you've been doing ODL, so many of you are already familiar with this. But a lot of institutions in Nigeria and actually within the region, this is new to them, new to everyone. I can speak for my university. We don't have classes online. We have all our classes as face-to-face, both for weekend and the regular classes. So these are expectations and these are skills that we have to develop over time. They're not a straitjacket thing. Some will have to evolve. Some will have to depend on the prevailing circumstances of the institution. And so one very important skill is a communication skill. The post-COVID-19 teacher will have to learn to communicate differently. Possibly, if I need to send information across, I send for the course rep. Please tell your students I'm coming in tomorrow. But this is going to change. I'm probably going to be sending text or WhatsApp or voicemail messaging or some other form of online messaging system. I have to learn to communicate effectively. Face-to-face communication, people read your expression. Sometimes even when they cannot hear you, they can read your lips or look at your expression and guess what you're trying to say. But it's not going to be the same in this case. Nobody can really guess your intention. So the post-COVID-19 digital teacher must have to learn to communicate effectively and avoid ambiguity. It is also the responsibility to create the channel or channels of communication so that if I'm using WhatsApp, email, SMS, the learners know to expect my messages or my communication through this channel. Not today I use one, tomorrow I use something else, and then some will miss out. If all the students need to sign up with email to my classes, I have created that channel of communication. And the teacher will need to develop stronger communication skills. Like I had said, visual communication, if you're talking face-to-face, the person can actually guess even without hearing you, but these visual cues are absent in online communication, so it's a very important skill that needs to be developed. Control language, tone, it has to be developed as well. Concise and clear instructions will have to be given in email and online messaging. As a teacher in class, I can repeat myself several times when students really don't get it. But if I am giving pre-recorded lecture, there is no room for repetition. So in that case, I am expected as the digital teacher to be able to pass the message across in a concise manner. Especially admin, I think you need to come in here. Are we good? The second skill is a time management skill. It is very essential for both teachers and learners. There has to be need for that consciousness. As teachers, we're used to talking and talking and talking, and we don't stop, and the students will not stop us. But now we have to put in the consideration that the timetable will change. In the conventional learning system, students can have classes from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That is not sustainable in the digital age. So we have to ensure that time is properly managed as a digital teacher. Make sure that the time for the delivery is properly managed. If the lecture is for 60 minutes, the delivery has to be 60 minutes. Sometimes there might be need to switch venues and see the learners running across the campus to get into the next class. This is kind of difficult in online teaching because they may need to log out of your class and log into the next class. There is a need to give them enough time to do that. So time management is another very important skill that the digital teacher would have to have post-COVID-19. Equally very important is patience, compassion, and empathy. Patience, not just towards the learner, but even towards the school management. There are times that infrastructure will break down because we're just trying to get into a new system. Infrastructures will break down, colleagues, students, we need to exercise patience. Those of us in science, we want to get things done and move on. But now, learners will learn at different paces. Some have very fast devices. Some have very, very slow devices. Some are going to be living in areas, in cities where they have very fast internet access, where some will probably have to climb top of some rocks or some tree to be able to get access to network. So patience is very, very important. Compassion and empathy. Many students have been affected by the pandemic one way or the other. Some have lost loved ones. Some may have lost their breadwinners and their sponsors. Some have been even be affected by the entire break in learning. People had actually planned, okay, I'm graduating in September, going for youth service in October. Now that has been disrupted. So there is a need for the digital teacher to show compassion, to show understanding. Sometimes they may miss deadlines. Provide listening ear. And of course, you don't have to go and take a training to give psychological support, But the digital teacher has to identify where there is a need to probably refer the student to a professional. Patience, compassion, and empathy is very, very important in addition to every other technological skills that a teacher may learn. And we look at some of the skills. Many tools are evolving. Some we don't even know about until this crisis. For the digital teacher, we have to need to work with the institution administrators based on the ones they are adopting. What are the digital learning management tools? There are so many of them. UNESCO has provided a comprehensive list of tens and hundreds of them. Then the communication tools, we have Zoom, Skype, Microsoft Teams. Some institutions may decide to adopt some of this, so the teacher will have to learn, and then of course, learn some other ones, because it's not just about teaching in your university. You probably go elsewhere. You probably have to engage with some other people. There are so many. There are the massive open online courseware systems, many of them. Some like LAUTECH, Kampala International University, they have developed their own collaborative teaching and learning tools. So in this case, as a digital teacher, you have to learn your own institutional-based LMS and online teaching support system. In addition to these tools, there are some technological literacy. They may seem trivial, but they're very important. A lot of people don't even know how to save a file in Microsoft Word in PDF. This is important. Evaluate internet resources to kind of estimate the speed of the internet. This is something important, a skill that should also be learned and mastered. Things like copyright privileges, plagiarism checkers, monitoring the proper netiquette. There's every possibility for me to tell a student, my friend, go and sit down, get out of my office. These are not acceptable in online learning systems. You could actually be flagged. How to design lessons and plans for online students. It's also a very important literacy that has to be learned. Simple troubleshooting. Before you send for somebody in the works and services office, at least little troubleshooting like checking if there is power in the socket or if there is a phase failure somewhere. These are equally important for everyone to learn. And how skills evolved, creating animations and video, assessments and evaluation skills, using of clicker systems, and several trivial applications that may not be part of the integrated LMS. They are also very important for the digital teacher. And moving forward, I'm going to be looking at some final thoughts. That in the midst of these fears and anxieties of COVID-19, we have to bear it in mind that universities all over the world, they have survived what scenarios. We've had earthquakes, we've had a tsunami, we've had so many other things. We have had civil war, we've had world wars that came even after some universities have been. And university is a very strong institution that will survive and has survived this and will still survive the COVID-19. And we have also been presented with another opportunity to realize that university is unique. It will continue to evolve. We are the knowledge generators, we're the knowledge center. So we are going to have to be one of the few institutions that will emerge stronger after the COVID-19 and after the walls of the classroom, the doors of the classroom are open, both digitally and physically. And therefore, for the administrations, they need to rethink their mission. How does digital learning fit in? I remember when we were undergraduates, students who schooled through part-time mode were not allowed to go for NYSC. Such disparities will now have to be removed so that students who go through that dual mode or fully online mode or traditional mode will have to enjoy the same set of benefits. And then what kind of higher institution do we want after this pandemic? Universities, the best ones are not going to be just defined by the architectural buildings. The most beautiful universities will not be those ones with the most beautiful buildings, but it's going to be those who have shifted in paradigm, have been able to adapt to the change occasioned by the COVID-19 and every other foreseeable pandemic. The way universities communicate will have to change to meet the need of students and staff. Previously, notices are posted on the physical notice board. Now, universities probably have to create email addresses, WhatsApp groups, and some other communication learning platforms for their students. So the post-COVID-19 digital teacher will have to evaluate the readiness as an online educator, prepare to meet a half-empty class. The rest have moved online. We'll have to facilitate and teach online courses. So be patient, accommodate those who are living in Lagos with very high bandwidth and those who are living in Idore that will have to probably climb the hill to get access to network. Provide effective communication. Identify the right tool for the diversity in the composition of the online learners. Assessment will have to go online. There might be need to de-emphasize certain parts of the assessment to be able to allow the student to adapt. Feedback will have to be provided online. You're not going to call somebody to your office any longer and scold him or her. You're going to have to provide the feedback in assessment online. And then generally, the post-COVID-19 digital teacher will have to monitor and support the progress of teachers online. Thank you very much.
Professor Francisca Oladipo, thank you so much for that beautiful and straightforward presentation. Thank you so much. We have been able to grab some things, that is what is expected of the digital teacher post-COVID-19. So she took us through the sciences of COVID-19. So we used to know sciences such as natural sciences as biology, then communication sciences, then social sciences. Then the new normal has now brought in, though not entirely new according to her, the science of teaching and learning, which has to change now. So the skills expected of both learners and teachers in post-COVID-19 era, we may have to reskill, upskill, and so on and so forth. When we're doing this, we have to upskill our communication skills, time management skills, and so on and so forth. The digital teacher post-COVID-19 has to have patience, compassion, and empathy. And the teachers must know how to use some tools. It's not business as usual. We are calling this era the new normal. It's not the business as usual. So on the final note, she ended that the beautiful universities of the post-COVID-19 era are no longer going to be defined by their beauty advices, but by how much they've been able to embrace the paradigm shift in learning and teaching in the new normal era. Thank you so much once again, Professor Francisca Oladipo, for that presentation.